This episode of Fermented Adventure the Podcast features Tetsuro Mayazaki of Iichiko Shochu. We had an amazing conversation learning about what is Shochu and what is Iichiko Shochu. Be sure to reach out to Tetsuro and Iichiko and let them know what you thought about the podcast. Cheers! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, craft spirit enthusiasts, and those interested in the intoxicating world of craft distilleries, cideries, meaderies, wineries, and the occasional foray into breweries. It's Rich Shane, and welcome to Fermented Adventure, the podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people that are making the mash, fermenting, distilling, bottling, pouring, and delivering to you some of the finest libations in the world. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. Thank you for bringing the podcast into wherever you are and whatever you're doing. We truly are grateful that you have chosen to listen and make us part of your day. It would mean the world to us if you left a 5-star review. This helps us climb in the rankings, and it makes it easier for others to find us. Don't hesitate to leave us your comments as well. If the podcast didn't meet your expectations, tell us why. We're always striving to improve. You can find us at fermentedadventure.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook as Fermented Adventure. Email us at fermentedadventure@gmail.com. All right, FA Nation, let's meet our guest. He's Tetsuro Mayazaki. I'm Rich Shane. This is Fermented Adventure, the podcast. And today we have Iichiko Shochu on the podcast. Tetsuro, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Now, we met at Bar Convent, Brooklyn, and we had a little bit of a conversation. And, for me and my listeners, we're not that familiar with shochu. What is shochu?
Shochu is a Japanese local distilled spirit. Mezcal from Mexico, Pisco from Peru. Shochu is from Japan. So shochu is a Japanese original craft spirit.
Now, I understand from my limited knowledge, we think of Japan and we think of sake. And I understand that shochu is something that's consumed more than sake is in Japan. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Shochu is more popular than sake and Japanese whiskey. Most consumed alcohol beverage.
That is correct. Like, how come, if this is something that's consumed by the masses, how come we in the United States are not familiar with this? What's taken this product so long to become so familiar to us as consumers in the United States?
People don't know about shochu yet. So we just started our education from 2019 to the US consumers. Before that, we sold our shochu only in Japanese restaurants. So that's a reason why US people don't know shochu yet. Still, we need time to educate US consumers about shochu.
Now, educate us. Talk about what is, you said it's a distilled spirit. How is it made? And what's the process for taking it from whatever you start with, that raw product, and put it into a glass or a bottle?
Yes. So first, I'd like to talk about the difference between sake and shochu. It's much easier to understand. Sake is made from rice, and then it's categorized into brewed alcohol, such as wine and beer. But the shochu can be made from barley, sweet potato, buckwheat, and then rice. And then it's categorized into distilled spirits, such as vodka, tequila, gin, rum. So shochu is a distilled spirit. So that's a difference between sake and the shochu. Sake is brewed, but the shochu is distilled.
Now, I'm curious, and you're probably going to talk about it now, but what's the fermentation process to get it before it is distilled?
Oh, yes. Oh, that's a good question. The characteristic, a unique point of shochu fermentation is fermented with koji. Koji is a key enzyme to create umami flavor to Japanese food, any Japanese food, such as miso, soy sauce, something like that, sake as well, to create umami flavor. So shochu also using koji to create umami flavor in moromi mash fermentation process. And then after that, we distill only once to preserve original flavor of fermentation.
Now, you said you distill once. Is this in a column still? Is this in a copper? What stills, are there different stills like we find in the United States for whiskey? Does each shochu distiller have a different process for that?
It's a stainless pot still, stainless. And then because Japanese shochu company don't like to add any flavor from copper, so we are using stainless to keep the original flavor as much as possible.
Now, the bottles that I have show a clear liquid. Is this something that gets filtered? Is there a cold chill filtering through the process?
Yes, it's filtered by charcoal. Yeah, charcoal. Some charcoal. We are using several kind of charcoal, but bamboo charcoal and then just general charcoal as well.
There must be some flavor that gets imparted even from the charcoal. I'm thinking like the Lincoln County process in Tennessee. Does that kind of find its way in the shochu as well?
Yeah, it affects some flavors, but it's really general things in Japan, shochu and the sake industry.
Iichiko, talk about the company, its history, and how it all got started.
1979, Iichiko was launched as a new type of shochu. And then Iichiko is made from 100% barley, and then most popular Japanese shochu in Japan market. And then we are selling about 7 million cases in Japan. And then we are ranked as number 27th largest distilled spirits brand all over the world.
Wow.
All over the world, yeah. And then 7 million case is almost same as Tito's vodka. And then our product sold in Japan 99%. 99% is consumed only in Japan. So as you can imagine, Japan is such a small country like California, but the 7 million cases in Japan, that means everywhere we can see our Iichiko brand in Japan. Every station, every convenience store, every liquor shop, every supermarket.
What do you attribute to this market saturation, to this brand fandom, so to speak, that Iichiko from 1979 becomes the number one consumed shochu brand in Japan and, becomes, I think for a company like yours, knowing your place and where you are in terms of worldwide distribution, the United States, and once you introduce this, this is catapulting you to a whole new stratosphere in terms of a brand and the popularity of it.
Yes, I think so.
What do you attribute that growth to and that popularity in Japan for your shochu?
Yes, so shochu has a long history in Japan, about 500 years history. But before Iichiko launch, shochu had a really distinctive flavor, and it's just a local spirit in Kyushu Island, where located south part of Japan. Just that area, shochu people consume shochu, but after Iichiko, the characteristic of shochu, Iichiko, was we created really refreshing flavor of shochu in Japan. We introduced with a new way, which called vacuum distillation method. So that removed strong bad flavors from shochu, and then people started drinking shochu after Iichiko launch. So that made a big boom. Shochu boom in Japan. It was 1980s.
What for you? How did you get introduced to shochu? What at your earliest age? What remembrances do you have of trying and consuming it and enjoying it?
Oh yes, traditional way to enjoy shochu is on the rocks with ice or with water, and then with hot water in the winter. Yeah, that's a traditional way. But right now in Japan, highball style, it's called shochu highball. Abbreviation is chuhai. Chuhai style is really popular in Japan.
How did you get introduced to shochu? What were your first recollections of drinking shochu?
When I was a university student, I worked at a bar. Also, I majored in shochu and did research on the genetic manipulation of koji for shochu making. And then, I also worked as a bartender at night, and I think, that made a big influence who I am today.
What was it about shochu for you that, you studied and you really wanted to improve shochu in terms of methods, manufacturing? So you love shochu and you've studied shochu in university. What was it, or what is it that appeals to you versus you could have found your way maybe into sake or whiskey or vodka or gin? What is it about shochu for you that this is, you love shochu?
That's really good question. And when I was a bartender, when I was a university student, I learned a lot of cocktails and then global distilled spirits. And then when I saw the menu, cocktail books at the Japanese bar, there is so many categories: gin-based cocktails, rum-based cocktail, vodka-based, but there was no shochu-based cocktail, even though shochu is Japanese traditional distilled spirit. So I thought, this is really interesting, and then I loved shochu, so I want go into this industry.
Pardon the interruption. If you like what you hear, if you love what you're hearing, please share the podcast. Please take a screenshot of the podcast, post it on your social media, tag us just to let everybody else know about Fermented Adventure, the podcast. We'd be grateful for your help to grow our podcast. We are going to taste this, and I had a little bit of it for the first time at Bar Convent, Brooklyn, and I know that they were sampling in little plastic cups. And I was wondering, I said to Dawn today, as we were preparing for our interview, I'm looking at our array of glasses, and I'm saying, you mentioned that shochu highball, the chew ball, right? As you said,
Chuhai.
I'm going to mess this up, and I'm going to go to a Japanese cocktail bar, and I'm going to ask for a chew ball, and they're not going to know what I'm talking about. So the chuhai. But traditionally, you mentioned water and hot water. What kind of glass, if I were to just try it straight or not make a cocktail, what kind of glass would I choose to drink shochu?
It's also you can shot as neat by shot glass. Also, just on the lock glass, like a whiskey glass is good for
like a rocks glass or a Glencairn even.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And then for chuhai, just a tall glass, like a whiskey highball glass, would be good.
All right, we're going to get into cocktails shortly, but which of the, so we talked about the two expressions that we have to try today. Which one should we start with?
So first, this Iichiko silhouette. So this is the number one shochu.
This is the number one.
Yeah, this is a number one.
I've got it in my hand.
Yeah, this is a traditional way, traditional barley shochu. The expression, alcohol ABV is 25% ABV. So it's also one of shochu culture. 25% is a general alcohol ABV in shochu industry in Japan, because we usually drink shochu with meals, with food. So it's really easy to drink, low ABV, and really refreshing, citrusy.
What I really, and in my perception, what I'm being brought back to is my first experience of trying this. I opened the bottle and for just total exposure and saying, we didn't open these yet. I wanted to open them, for transparency with you to get that full feeling. The first thing that I got was this full effervescence that came off the bottle. where it was almost beer-like. And I'm sure that's some of the characteristics of the barley. Now that I put it in my glass, I get some whiskey characteristics. That citrus that you mentioned comes through. And my impression initially, because it's a clear spirit, my mind says, it's almost going to be vodka-like, where I may not have any, some cases personality to what I'm nosing, but this is that there's a warmth here. There's a brightness to it. There's a citrus, as we talked about. There's almost a whiskey characteristic to this on the nose. So this isn't just, hey, put it in a glass and drink it. You mentioned you could do a shot. This is something you can sip and enjoy and really get a lot of different variables in the experience.
Agree. Yes. I think you also, you can smell really soft, delicate flavor. It's a little bit similar to sake flavor. So this comes from a koji flavor. This comes from koji. Also, the aftertaste is really round and then no harsh, no bite.
I really enjoy, the first thing I get is this viscosity that coats your tongue and your mouth. So it's not a thin, viscous spirit. There's actually, I guess, some sugars in there. There's a sweetness to it. You do get the properties of that ABV. It's very warming. It's almost like I want to say it rises into the nose and then it goes down into your past the throat, which is very enjoyable. And what you were saying about this idea of making a cocktail, I can really get a sense right away how this really plays into a cocktail right away. Talk about some of the cocktails that you may make out of this one expression.
Yes. This has a really light body and then it's very sensitive, very delicate flavor. So I think low ABV cocktail would be better to enhance the original flavor of this bottle. So for example, definitely too high would be good. Really simple.
I'm just reflecting back with you as to when you were in university and you were bartending and some of the experimentation that you might do with this. I don't know why, but the first thing I want to do is add some citrus to this, some grapefruit, some orange, citrus, some lemon. To this Iichiko silhouette. Yeah. Like I almost want to make like a shochu margarita out of this. I think that would play well because the juiciness of that tequila is almost in here, and you can play with maybe some. We could go like Japan meets Mexico, and maybe do like a margarita style, maybe with a little float of mezcal, because I'd be curious to see how this comes out with that smoky personality. I'm going to have to reach out to Tiffany Barrier, who is the drinking coach, and she would know some great cocktails to make out of this. So I'll reach out and see if she has some shochu ideas for when we have guests over and to entertain. Do you make a barrel? Does this ever age in any barrels, or is this is that something that Iichiko does?
Yes, actually, this shochu, all of our shochu is blended with several kind of raw shochu. So some raw shochu. Raw shochu means just the liquid just after distilled. It's stored in aged in barrel, wooden barrel or stainless, and then we are using two types of distillation method. Also, several kind of yeast. So each raw shochu is stored blended into one product, and then we this Iichiko silhouette also blended with barrel aged raw shochu, a few percentage.
So what I'm hearing you say is this: what's in this bottle, this spirit, actually has some barrel age to it.
Yes.
Which is really cool because that's where I'm getting some of that characteristics, that barrel age. But I'm just, I'm thinking, wow, does this, that one barrel aged spirit, do you just release a total barrel aged shochu and not blended, or is it more of a different property or different SKU that you have?
Yes, we are planning to release it next spring.
Okay, I want to be in line for that because that's exciting and that sounds like fun.
Yes.
I'm going to open this next one. Now, this is, do I pronounce this Seiten?
Seiten.
Seiten. All right. I want to make sure because, in the American market, I see Satan and I don't know. Seiten. So what is Seiten?
Seiten, Seiten means colorful sky in Japanese. And then this Iichiko Seiten was developed to US bar industry.
What is it about development for a US bar industry that makes this different than the one that we just tried, or the purpose of what we're trying?
Mm-hmm. So this was this Iichiko silhouette, regular Iichiko is 25% ABV. And then I tried to get into bar industry in the US with this regular shochu, traditional style. But at that time, bartenders wanted more powerful, more impact in a cocktail. And then, so we created this Iichiko Seiten with top mixologists in San Francisco. And then, this Iichiko Seiten has 43% ABV and then strong umami flavor, which comes from koji. So koji is we think koji is a main culture of shochu as a Japanese distilled spirit. So
I get this sourness on the nose a little bit. There's still that brightness that comes out of this being, it's less barley forward that I noticed from the previous silhouette that we did. But it's so unique and it's so different and it's so fun.
Yeah. The difference between these two is mainly two difference. One is volume of koji, and then the second is distillation method. For Iichiko regular one, Iichiko silhouette, this is distilled by vacuum distillation, which we can get refreshing flavor. But this Iichiko Seiten is distilled by authentic method, atmospheric distillation method, which can get a strong flavor from fermentation. Also, the volume of koji, we usually use koji as an ingredient, about 30% in the bottle. 30% koji, and then 70% is steamed barley. But for this Iichiko Seiten, we use 100% barley koji only. So that's why this has more strong, very unique flavor in it.
Tetsuro, can I tell you, I'm just enjoying this, and I'm so appreciative of the ability to understand from what you're sharing that difference in what the koji imparts. Because, as you were explaining what the koji does through the fermentation process, this really, this one gives you the ability to really understand and enjoy how that koji impacts on the flavor. This is so unique and so delicious. They're both great. And I can see the differences where you can serve one, do a shochu tasting or make some different cocktails. But you talked about the umami, right?
Yes.
And umami is, explain for those, that may be hearing that for the first time, what umami is, because you talked about maybe soy sauce and miso a little bit, right? But what is umami? Oh,
in English, probably savory is the closest expression of umami. It's really hard to explain.
I know, right? And I find that in the United States as well. When you talk umami, to me, it's like umami is you've got all your senses, right? And you've got different kinds of things that you're going to taste in your mouth. You got sweet, sour, all these things. But umami is a characteristic of its own. And
yes, exactly.
This is, it's earthy. As you said, it's savory. And then you have this big question mark in your head as you're drinking this going, what am I tasting? It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't figure it out. And that's the umami. And I'll tell you what, you're drawing me back to being at the booth and just being blown away for the first time of trying this and saying, why have I never had this before? And, and what's been missing in my life?
Yeah, it's totally new and unique, so unique, different from other spirit. So bartenders really love it. So they can create new flavor of cocktail in the on their menu. So that's why now top mixologists started learning shochu.
This is fun. And, for those mixologists and those bartenders, this is something really fun to play with. And, I'm a home bartender, and I can play around with this a little bit, but I would love to really find that cocktail creator, that mad scientist, so to speak, that really can take this and make this into such a wonderful experience of a cocktail and really highlight the umami that's in here, the koji that you talk about, the barley that is really, part of the backbone of the distillation. For Iichiko, you mentioned that you could distill, I think sweet potato, rice. What was it about barley that was important to use as the grain for this spirit? Yes,
as I said, shochu can be made from sweet potato, rice, barley, buckwheat, and then now major two ingredients in shochu industry in Japan is barley and the sweet potato. And then Iichiko is made from barley. So each region, shochu is made in south part of Japan, southern part of island. It's called Kyushu Island. So that's the mecca of shochu making. And then each region has each ingredient for shochu. So the reason why we are using barley for Iichiko is we are located in Oita Prefecture. And then that prefecture is famous for barley making.
So it's a regional thing. So had you been in a different region, you might have used buckwheat or sweet potato, but because of the area now, I think, it's almost like the terroir or the provenance allows, you're growing this, you're harvesting this from farmers that are local, and you really get the atmosphere, you get the climate, you get the soil, you get all those things that are going to play in that barley that impart the flavor and the personality of what you're making for the shochu.
Yes, exactly.
Tetsuro, what as a brand ambassador of Iichiko, what's the experience been like? How do you see, shochu now that you're opening to the United States market? How has this been received?
Oh yeah, it's really good. Yeah, really good. Little bit, may I talk about little bit my history? So I came to the US 2014, and then then I've been trying to figure out how to make shochu a global spirit. Until then, shochu had only, as I said, have been available in a low 25% ABV and had a history of not being accepted by American bartenders. But in 2019, we launched this Iichiko Saiten, 43% ABV. Product for cocktails, and we changed our distributor that is strong in bar business in the US. But it wasn't easy as I wanted because pandemic happened after we launched 2019. But at the time, it was really hard for bartenders and then this hospitality industry. But we collaborated with bartenders for social medias and then online seminars as much as we could. And then after pandemic, around last year, probably July, bartenders started carrying Iichiko Saiten at so many nice bars, especially in New York City.
So when you talk about some of these target markets, you mentioned that the Saiten was developed by somebody in San Francisco. I guess you look at, metro areas really where you want to get a foothold. New York, certainly in their cocktail industry and their beverage industry. Are there other areas, that people can now look to, find Iichiko either behind the bar? Where do you distribute? Where would people find Iichiko? Can they go? Are you in all 50 states, or how could people find you?
Actually, everywhere in the US right now. We started working with Southern Glazers from 2019. And then, currently, Iichiko is available everywhere in the US.
All right, but that's good, because now, people that are going to hear the podcast, or people that are going to talk, and they're going to be curious as to what this tastes like, what can I do with it, how can I experience it? If it's not sold behind the bar, it sounds like right now, most of the time you're going to find this Iichiko at more of a high end or more a well-established bar where the people know what to do with it, right? Unless, let's say it's a Japanese style bar or a Japanese style restaurant.
Yes. Especially, Japanese type of bars definitely carrying Iichiko. Also, if you are interested in learning about shochu, I recommend you go to Japanese restaurant. And then probably they have several kind of shochu, and then you can taste it as neat. And then you can compare, each shochu and each ingredients.
Here's what I want to do, Tetsuro. I want to go with you and let you share your experience, because I like the wealth of knowledge and the passion, because you can hear it. You love shochu. You want to share this with the world. You want to see people all over the world just drinking this. And look, I'm grateful for this experience today, because, like I said, how did I not know about this? This is a wonderful spirit that is so unique and so fun, that seitan and the umami and the silhouette bottle and the different flavors and characteristics of the barley. This is just delicious. It's just wonderful. What do you got on your schedule? I mean, you're the brand ambassador. You're out there talking Iichiko Shochu. What does a day in the life of Tetsuro look like for the world to see? What are you working on?
Yeah, definitely everyday education. Educate to the people, and then participate in major spirits event like BCB Brooklyn, Tales of the Cocktail. Also some consumer event in February next year. I'm gonna go Miami, South Beach Food and Wine Festival. I participate so many events, and then we do our own event, like a World Shochu Day, which was November 1st. We did a consumer event at Katanaki-ten, New York, for everyday education.
All right, I'm putting Shochu Day on my calendar for next year, because I don't want to miss it that next year. That sounds like so much fun. I mean, we're recording this on December 5th. So today is Repeal Day. So had we, not ever repealed, prohibition, we wouldn't have been able to talk and drink today. So kampai to Repeal Day.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't talked about on the podcast today? Is there anything, Tetsuro, that you want people to know about you and what you're doing, or Iichiko Shochu?
As you mentioned, this is really new and a very unique product. Shochu is really unique, and everybody who experienced shochu, they loved it. So please try, shochu, anyway, first at your favorite bar or your Japanese restaurant.
You're right. I mean, once people at least try this a little bit, I'm going to go to some of those Japanese restaurants, as you said, and ask them if they have the Iichiko behind the bar, because again, I may want to see what they can do as far as making a cocktail, but I can enjoy this with, some of those Japanese delicacies, the different flavors, different foods that we're going to have. This is amazing. So I am so grateful for your time today, Tetsuro. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, being a friend of Fermented Adventure. And we can't wait to see you at, BCB Brooklyn coming up in June, or, somewhere that we might find our paths cross. And if you're in the Philadelphia area, don't hesitate to say, hey, I'll be stopping by. Let's get together and raise a glass together and enjoy this shochu.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich-san. Sayonara.
Sayonara.
Arigato.
Kampai to Iichiko. Kampai.